Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Dracula from 1979, starring Frank Langella, Laurence Olivier, Donald Pleasance, Kate Nelligan, and Trevor Eve, directed by John Badham. Now, it's the same movie, well, it's the same year this movie came out. We had Nosferatu the Vampire. Now, we'll see which one's better because I don't know which one will be better by the end of it. Let's get into this movie. We open in a dark, stormy night on a ship that feels abandoned as people are knocked out and carry Count Dracula, played by Frank Langella this time, and the dogs start attacking the humans while they're in the middle of the sea, and I couldn't tell if the cinematography was colored or black and white at times. And I'm just going to say now, this is an ugly looking movie, while there were times I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on as we move on to Lucy, played by Kate Nelligan, chatting with someone named Mina, who and puts her to bed, and I'm thinking, who is this character? And at this point I'm 7 minutes into the movie, and I have to give it some time to set up the characters. And the ship lands and on land, and a woman whom I'm guessing is Mina finds dead bodies, and this movie is moves slowly, and it was to the point it was bothering me. Jonathan Harker, played by Trevor Eve, gets to the ship as he has business there with Dr. Jack Seward, played by Donald Pleasance, and they get to the house, to find Lucy, who is excited to see Harker. She kisses him, while Renfield, who works for Count Dracula, gets him out of the coffin and gets attacked by a bat, and the shots are awful throughout as Count Dracula enters and sees everyone as well as Mrs. Van Helsing and meets Harker for the first time in a dinner scene. And the acting in this movie is pretty bad for a movie about fucking Dracula. And every single time I view this movie, with an exception of when I took notes for this show, I fell asleep every single time, and it's that boring. Harker believes something is wrong with Count Dracula as Lucy falls down, and he does something to make her forget about it, and they suddenly start dancing, and the facial expressions on Harker makes it obvious there's something wrong with Count Dracula to begin with. And they get to sleep as Lucy wakes up and hears something in the middle of the night until Harker sneaks up on Lucy to ask about the dance with Count Dracula, and Mina is asleep in the bedroom on her own while Count Dracula is outside, and he finds a way in and he wakes her up and he's about to suck her blood, and she sees Count Dracula and he comes in and sucks the life out of her. And I did like that shot of when we get Count Dracula's shadow. That's a great shot, and I'll give the cinematography that for sure. Renfield wakes up knowing Count Dracula sucked the blood out of Mina while he eats a bug, which is disgusting, like it made me sick, as Count Dracula appears in Renfield's presence, and Renfield explains how he was bit by a bat, and the morning comes as Mina becomes a vampire while she can't breathe and all of a sudden dies. And Seward sees Mina's neck was bitten, and they telephone Dr. Abraham Van Helsing, played by Laurence Olivier, while Harker is looking for Count Dracula in his own house as he breaks in and has a chat with Count Dracula. And the production design was good, but not great. Renfield seeks help from Harker, and Harker takes Renfield to jail while Mina's funeral is taking place. And this movie doesn't hold up for 1979 as it looks stale. Van Helsing arrives to town with Harker as Lucy joins Count Dracula for a drink, which makes me think he's going to take her fucking blood, because when Count Dracula says drink, it means he's going to drink her blood. I mean, come on, it's that obvious. If you read or know the story of Count Dracula, a woman named Annie's body who was murdered by someone who, as she believes, it was a corpse named Mina, as Count Dracula kisses Lucy, and he asks her to leave and say he'll see her again in the most corny dialogue in history, while Van Helsing visits Mina's grave while making Lucy uncomfortable. And suddenly Count Dracula shows up, and they get inside, and Van Helsing notices something is wrong when nighttime comes, and the horse knows about something Mina's body being alive. And unfortunately, this isn't as scary as I'm finding none of these movies scary at all, with an exception of one I saw in the trailers and the upcoming Nosferatu. Count Dracula comes to Lucy's room and kisses her to the point he bites her neck and turns her into a fucking vampire, while we get images of Red and a bat flying away. And what the fuck was that image? As it was shown twice, maybe 3 times in the movie, as it was getting obnoxious. And they continue smooching up a storm while Van Helsing and Seward dig up the coffin of Mina and get her body out of there. But she goes underneath, and Van Helsing follows where she went, and he sees Mina's dead body, and she almost bites Van Helsing. And Seward comes in and burns Mina's face with a cross, and she doesn't like which makes sense if you know how the whole vampire thing works. So I didn't mind that. Count Dracula appears as he becomes threatening to Van Helsing, and Van Helsing shows Count Dracula some garlic, which is accurate as he puts it down and eventually shows the cross to Count Dracula, and it scares him away, while Harker finds out, as does Seward, that Count Dracula tries to kill Van Helsing, but he doesn't succeed. And despite this movie is a mess, I like the second half better than the first half, as the score was corny as hell, as well as Lucy asking for tea. And when the maids leave, Lucy leaves the house, and Harker goes after her while Lucy goes to Count Dracula and tells Harker if she doesn't go to him, she'll kill herself. And can anyone make sense? Can anyone make sense of this? As she's a fucking vampire. I mean, come on. That was bothering me. Harker and Van Helsing go after Dracula while Seward gets home with Lucy as they approach Count Dracula's door, and they look like the bastard, and they look for the bastard, excuse me, and they start with this coffin, and Count Dracula approaches them, and Harker shows the cross to him, but it won't destroy him as he burns it and tries to hit him with a shovel, but he turns into a goddamn bat and escapes and gets to Harker's face and bites him, and he burns from sunlight, which is the way to kill a vampire in the first place. And Harker visits Lucy, and she feels weak from Count Dracula's curse and asks him if he still loves her as she's playing games with him, and almost bites his damn neck while kissing him. And Van Helsing shows her the cross and gets the vampire out of Lucy. And that was unconvincing, as I didn't believe she would be changed back to human at this point. A guard sees Renfield is eating bugs still, and a nighttime comes, and they prepare to trap Count Dracula by using Renfield as bait. And Harker hears Renfield and eventually turns around, and Count Dracula breaks Renfield's neck, and Count Dracula kidnaps Lucy and takes her to the castle, while Van Helsing, Seward, and Harker go after Count Dracula and get Lucy out of there and get stopped by someone with horses compared to a vehicle. And they learn they're in a horse carriage and go after them until they bump their vehicle and talk about bad chase sequences, which is what this is. Harker goes after them by foot as Count Dracula and Lucy get on a ship, while Harker, Van Helsing, and Seward stop the ship to talk with the captain, and they find Count Dracula and Lucy in the coffin, and they fight each other while Count Dracula kills Van Helsing and Seward, and Harker tries to kill Count Dracula with silver and hangs Count Dracula outside in the sun while it's daytime and turns into ash, as does Lucy. Or does he fly away as Count Dracula as a vampire flies away? And Lucy smiles, and the climax was better than the first half, but does it make me like the movie? Let's find out in a rating. I'll give this movie a 4.1 out of 10. The cinematography is ugly in this movie, as this is an ugly looking movie, and the shots are awful from start to finish, while this movie moves slowly to the point it was bothering me, as this movie is very slow, and I particularly fell asleep every single time I viewed this movie, except for the viewing I had to take notes on this movie, as it's boring. The acting in this movie is pretty bad. While I don't like the characters, even Count Dracula himself, as he's the star of this movie, for Christ's sakes. And the production design was good, but not great in my opinion, as this movie doesn't hold up as well as from 1979, as it looks stale, and none of this is scary, as none of these movies have been scary, with an exception of what I saw in the trailer for the upcoming Nosferatu. The story is weak, like some of the movies I've reviewed before, but it's not worse as Dracula's Daughter and Son of Dracula, as the daughter one I got, but the son, I don't get why it was titled that. And I like the second half of this movie more than the first half, as this is a mild non recommendation for this movie, as it could have been told better, as the score was corny as hell as well. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 1990s. And until then, I am Dracula, and I will suck your blood.